Hi there, this is Alan Smart here, Citizen Smart, some of you might know me as. I have a story to tell you, so stay with me, but I'm going to start with a wee song, because the whole story started with a song. Hey Mac, did you see him as he came down for Gorgie? Oh, the lamb on off of the day. Oh, yon man is coming, and the hill town it's turning it. We're all sure hill went back to Glasgow today. Now that is the first verse of the JOHN MACLEAN March, as I'm sure most of you'll know, and even those that don't know it probably recognise the tune or bits of it. Frankly, it is the most important folk song in modern folk political tradition, and I've not really appreciated how important it was in terms of the folk movement. I always know it's a good song and a popular one, but in terms of it was the genesis, it was the first major song that Hamish Henderson wrote, and it was written in 1948, more or later, and from that the whole kind of folk tradition through to the 1960s anti-Polaris campaign, Matt McGinn, Billy Connolly, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan, the whole thing mushroomed. It wasn't just a Scottish thing, and really most music historians are fairly agreed on the fact that that all stemmed from that song. And it was not only that song, it was the playing of the song in a particular context, and I'll come on to this in 1 second. The context was a St Andrew's Day event, though it took place on the 28th because St Andrews fell on a Tuesday, so a Sunday night, St Andrew's Day event in St Andrews Hall in Glasgow, which is now the Mitchell Library, or part of the Mitchell Library, because St Andrews Hall burnt down in about 1960 or something like this. So it took place in the St Andrews Hall on kind of St Andrew's Day to commemorate, wait for it, the 25th anniversary of the death of John MacLean, who just happened to die on St Andrew's Day. So St Andrews, St Andrews, St Andrews, and that will occur, 70 years anniversary occurs this 28th November, Wednesday the 28th November, occurs this coming, first, the world premiere of the most important folk song in Scottish folk tradition history, and a very important one in global terms. And nobody seemed to know about this. I didn't know about this until my good friend Gavin Patterson, who some of you may know, approached me and asked me to be involved in this and said, doing this. And to me it was a no-brainer. You want to be involved, you know. Of course I do. When does he start? You know. And Gavin says to me, you know, I know all the folk stuff, and all this stuff I've told you is really Gavin's story, you know, about the importance of it. And Gavin now presents for Celtic Radio, and is something of an expert on all these matters, which I don't claim to be. But what Gavin says, that he's not an expert on the politics of the period and the politics of MacLean and the history of MacLean, and I would be a great help if I went away and tried and dig out stuff on that, and he would concentrate on the kind of music industry and music tradition. So I says, fine. So off I goes, and you know the first thing I did, although I'm a history graduate and all this, I put in JOHN MACLEAN Wikipedia. On some grounds it's the quickest way of getting kind of your memory refreshed. And the first thing I read, or almost the first thing I read is, and I'm saying to myself, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. And then I looked again, and I looked again, that is right. And what I saw was the JOHN MACLEAN March is about John MacLean's return to the Clyde. That's what the song's about. And Gavin's event was about the 70th anniversary of an important event. And I'm not knocking 70th anniversary, but they're only 70th. They're not like killer anniversaries. But I find that the actual, John MacLean's actual return to the Clyde took place on the 3rd of December 1918. Which means it took place exactly 100 years ago, this coming 3rd December 2018. And why I thought that can't be right, I'm thinking, if that was right, where are the celebrations, where are the commemorations, why have I not seen anything on Facebook about this, why is nothing happening? Or nothing that I knew. And I do look, and there was one thing happening as far as I could see, which was a live and rent event by basically the Scottish Labour History Society, which was taking place in a smallish cafe in the middle of Glasgow. Looks a good event, But, you know, not knocking it at all, but, you know, it's an event that will pass without much to do, apart from the people that go to. I'm sure it'll be a good night. I'm going to go myself. But there's nothing like, there's no commemorations, there's no nothing, and nothing at all. And I'm just amazed. And I then ask around, am I missing something, or is it in another day, or have I got this? No, not a thing. And then I start digging out, because I do remember this, I did study this history, and then I find out that there's no doubt in my mind, having looked at this, that day when Maclean steps off a train from Peterhead, or actually from Aberdeen, he changed trains in Peterhead, about 4:30 he gets off at Buchanan Street Station, railway station, which is near the current bus station, but it's more or less Glasgow Caledonian University, where the new Herald building is, that kind of junction bit. When he steps off the train there, he's greeted by a crowd of over 100, well over 100,000, and the reckoning is that about 250,000 people saw him that day and took him home to his home in Pollokshields, the JOHN MACLEAN March, and that is what Henderson's song's all about. And that was absolute high watermark, Red Clydeside. No harm to the general strike, the George Square riots with the tanks in the streets. An image you might be familiar with, that took place on the 31st of January 1919. That took place more or less 2 months later. That was a big event, but high watermark in terms of the revolutionary potential of Red Clydeside, as opposed to the industrial dispute, which basically the 40-hour week was about. The high watermark was the moment that Maclean got let out of jail, and the moment he literally stepped off that train. That was the potential Finland station moment, if you're familiar with the history of the Russian Revolution, when Lenin returned from exile in Finland. That was the moment the authorities feared, and that was the moment in which, that's why people turned out. They had a great respect for Maclean, but they didn't really turn out for that reason. They expected it to kick off. Now it didn't, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that, which I'm sure you'll know about or want to know about, but that's not really the point. That was the moment. And what's happening in Glasgow, the biggest city in Scotland, the supposed red city still, what's anybody doing? Zilch. But that need not be the case. Because what Gavin, myself, and a group of other people, you can go and find out who they are, there's no secret about them. They're all heavily involved in various campaigns, social justice, independence movement. It's not an independence movement thing, but it's people that are involved in the independence movement, primarily involved at the moment. We've just been away and working and gotten things organised, and what's going to happen, first of all, what's definitely happening, it will definitely happen on Wednesday the 28th of November, will be the re-singing of the JOHN MACLEAN March in the Mitchell Library. It's all agreed with the council, and that will happen in the early evening of the 28th, where the song will be sung again, symbolically, hopefully televised, hopefully put live on the internet. These details have to be arranged, but it will most definitely be done. That is happening. And the other thing, well, there's a lot of things we're working on, but the other main thing we're working on is to try and recreate the JOHN MACLEAN March, literally to take the exact route, which is basically Glasgow Caledonian University, pretty much straight down Buchanan Street, but you can't go straight down Buchanan Street these days because you've got the Royal Concert Hall and that whole thing, the whole shopping centre there, so you have to kind of skip round it. And where do you skip round it? If you know Glasgow, basically West Nile Street, and wait for it, where you hop into Buchanan Street logically is you walk past through Nelson Mandela Place and on to Buchanan Street, and then straight down the pedestrianised Buchanan Street, more or less to the Clyde, a couple of wee streets to negotiate, St Enoch's Centre, St Enoch's Tube Station, to Carlton Place, which is precisely where the main rally took place 100 years previously, where incidentally Maclean did not make any speeches. He never made any speech in the day. The only speech Maclean made in the day, to note, was actually in Aberdeen when he changed trains from Peterhead to Aberdeen to come down. The only speech that JOHN MACLEAN made on his great march was in Aberdeen, to a hastily arranged Aberdeen Trades Council event. And then he basically come down the line, and that's, if you look at the rest of the song, the great man is coming, the hail tune is turning out, was the anticipation of this train coming down the track. And I'm backtracking here, he'd been put in jail in May 1918, had been in jail in more or less solitary confinement. The only person that saw him was his wife for 7 months. He was in a 5-year sentence and the authorities crumbled. And just after the armistice, a matter of days after the armistice, they announced he would be let out. No one quite knew precisely when he would be let out. So there was a sense of anticipation. And that is what the John MacLean March was about. And we're just about to miss it collectively as the left, the nationalist left, the unionist left, the left, the green left, the independent left. And frankly, even if you're not even left, it's a major event. It was one of the biggest events ever in Scottish history. I would say it was the biggest event in the entire history of the Scottish Labour and progressive movements. And predates it. Nothing bigger happened in terms of the Carlton Weavers and the times of the radical movements of the 1820s. So this is how big it is. And that's why we're recreating the march. And frankly, if I'm the only person on that march, or it's me and my Doug on that march, I still think it's worth doing. But I think we can do better than that. And even if it's only a few hundred, we can do better than that. And then there's a period in between the event on the 28th, the celebration of the rededication of the John MacLean March. That's a Wednesday. Then there's the Thursday, obviously. Then there's the Friday. What's Friday? St Andrew's Day. And then there's a Saturday. Any Saturday, anything happens. And then there's a Sunday. There's a rather big event taking place. The Scottish League Cup final. Who's playing? Aberdeen, aye, where he spoke. And Celtic. Where it kind of came from. Not quite, but... So, and you've got the red. And you've got the green. And somebody might unite around, despite cursing each other during the 90 minutes, might be the fact that John MacLean was a good sort of guy. So that's got potential. And there's also some potential, which I'm not going to mention here, because they're just ideas, and they're ideas that frankly me and Gavin and a handful of other people that are working with this cannot realise on their own, but I think you can. And I've selected people to tell first, kind of randomly, but not entirely randomly, because I know every one of you will be interested in this story and every one of you can bring something to the table. And we need that brought to the table quick and on a basis of goodwill and trust. This is not a political thing, it's not even done as an ego trip, it's done because somebody's got to do it. And it just happened to fall to me, Gavin, Sean, Eddie, Pauline, Rosie, Mary, and a few others. Then we'll do a good show, better than a good show, a good event, something that folk will be glad to come to. But we want a lot of people at it, really ideally. We don't want it to be just for people that are active at the moment. We want to get new generations of people. Because that was the whole genius of Hamish Henderson as a songwriter. He didn't write songs for the activists. And if you look at that song, listen to the song, I'll play it at the end. It's not a song for activists, it's a song for people. It's a song for the 200,000, 250,000 people that turned out that day and their descendants. And the other thing I've noticed, just see when I've been doing the research and just visiting people and going to recce's and all this, speaking to people, the number of just ordinary people that know something about John MacLean. I've got an uncle, or my uncle used to sing that song, and my great-granddad was on that march, or we went to a school that MacLean taught in. The folklore of the guy is just massive, which is kind of logical when you think about it, because a guy that can get $250,000 out for his return, and from all accounts a similar number out for his death, his funeral 5 years later, clearly he's got something going for him, and his story is just fantastic. I mean, the MacLean story, whatever your political view, and there's debate over whether he was fundamentally a nationalist or fundamentally a socialist. I think he's a bit of both, and he's got the same dilemma as everybody, I think. But whatever your view on that, to pin it down to that in a contemporary context just misses the whole point of the guy. The guy was just a genius in every sense. And he did suffer, and this is another important part of the MacLean story, he's not really been highlighted because of this stigma. He did suffer from mental health problems in his latter years. It was used as a smear, frankly, by his opponents, pretty disgracefully by some folk in the Communist Party, because he didn't take their line, but he did have problems. And I think that's a good message to get out, that even our heroes have got mental health problems. So there's lots of stuff. The other thing he did, he was a great ally of the feminist movement, and one criticism I would have of Henderson's song, great though it was, every single person in it, every character, the real characters, the mythical characters, every single one of them's a man. You would think women didn't exist. Whereas actually in December 1918, when Maclean got off that train, never have women played a more prominent role in the labour and trade union movement than then. That's the era they made about rent strikes. That's, to be fair to the men, most of them are off fighting, or the younger men are off fighting. The women come in, they take over the workforce, they take over the trade union movements, the co-op movements, the tenants movements. And, you know, not to get a mention of women in that song is a serious weakness, and something we might try and correct a little bit without tinkering too much with the original lyrics. But, so, I mean, frankly, on that particular issue, 1918 was more advanced than 1948. Obviously, we've advanced it back the way, but there's a good point there as well. There's so many, honestly, there's so many angles, and the bigger angle still, which is really where Gavin's coming into it, is you've actually got this angle of the JOHN MACLEAN March, you know, basically the kick-off of the entire tradition of political songwriting and the writing of songs for political process, the anti-nuclear movement, the miners' strike. I mean, I was involved in just recently the bedroom tax, the writing of that song, the songs of Matt McGinn, Adam McNaughton, all the street songs. It's a real Scottish thing. It's not, I mean, it's a good thing. It's all over the world, but it kind of genuinely the genesis of it is the MacLean March, the Henderson, and that if you look at the chronology of that, it then spreads. The guy that incidentally hosted that event and actually commissioned the songs, a guy called Maurice Blythman, who some of you might have heard of. He also went under the name of Thurzo Berwick, and he wrote the Scottish Breakaway and first decent Republican song in Scotland. Doesn't he have a queen? He wrote it to the tune of the sash. You'll know, we'll join the Scottish breakaway, we'll make Scotland. There's that, and then but all the Ding Dong Dother, the Scottish Eskimos, all these songs of the early anti-nuclear movement in the early 60s around the Holy Loch. That's all Blythman, the guy that commissioned Henderson. And then what happened is Pete Seeger come over from America, kind of a bit of a busted flush, or certainly going nowhere fast. He saw what we were doing in Scotland and then basically took it over to the States and kind of translated it into their context. Of the civil rights movement, the peace movement, and then Pete Seeger, the last time I remember Pete before his death was he's singing on the steps of the White House in 2008 at Obama's inauguration, singing We Shall Overcome. And I think that kind of started in Scotland, if you actually, and I think Pete would admit that, not that the song was written there, but the idea of using song as a form of protest started there, and he adopted it to America as people adapt folk songs all over the world to their own particular context. So there's huge angles here, and we need your help. What you're precisely going to have to do is frankly think yourself, but we'll be putting out some asks very soon, I mean very, very soon, in a matter of days. One of the reasons we're doing it so late is because we only found it out ourselves about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we've been working flat out to try and do something and be realistic about what we can do. And another reason is, frankly, technically getting a website out quick enough is proven slightly problematic. So, you know, any good web designers that we're going to do us a favour, get them onto us pronto. Graphic designers, that kind of type of thing. Money is going to be needed, and I know a lot of you are loaded, so maybe this is what your money's for. And there'll be stuff going up very, very soon in a matter of days. We also think we've almost consciously now held back a little because we missed our original dates because of the Armistice Day celebrations this weekend, which are just in media terms going to blow everything out of the water. But this is part of the Armistice story. They only let MacLean out of jail because of the Armistice. They could only risk it. They couldn't risk it during the war. That's why they put him in jail, because they were frightened about losing the war. And also the enthusiasm with which people greeted MacLean's return was from there. That was their celebration. That was their Armistice Day. The day MacLean got out. It's like, what's in it for us? We've won the war, big deal. To quote the Labour's phrase from the 1945 period, the 1945 general election, now win the peace. That's what the MacLean March was about. And what actually happened to chronology, literally, MacLean got out on the 3rd of December, 1918. And the precise date at the top of my head, I don't know, but it's literally about 10 days, 10 days or sort of a couple of weeks later, there was the famous, the infamous khaki election, which was a general election called, really quickly by Lloyd George to capitalise on his hero status, and it eventually was a landslide all over the UK for the the government ticket, that basically the Tories and the right-wing Liberals, and Labour didn't do nearly as well. John MacLean was a candidate in that election, an official Labour candidate for more or less the Gorbals, or an expanded part of the Gorbals. And it was also the election, the first ever election that women got the vote in. I mean, these are huge anniversaries and they're passing us by. Women for the first time got the vote, albeit only some of them, which was frankly one of the reasons the Labour Party got done in, because it was only richer women that got the vote who tended not to vote Labour, but that's a minor point. But John MacLean was a massive supporter of the suffragettes movement, and he would never have missed, if he was writing that song, he would never have missed women out. He would never have signed that song off, MacLean himself, because he knew, you know, the Mary Barbers, just so many, Montefiore, just so, in fact, here they are, here they are. Gotta look at my glasses on. Can't tell you who that is. Give us a minute, I'm going to tell you. She's worth a mention. Excuse me. Commercial break. Here we are. Agnes Dolan. I know about Agnes. Went on to be involved heavily in the Labour Party, but she was a major figure during the rent strike, a major figure when MacLean got out. But what happened to her? She married a guy called Pat Dolan, who, surprise, surprise, stole the limelight. He became Provost of Glasgow and a leading figure, and she slowly but surely faded away into the background of and basically run the rent strike. She was there, and then the other lady's even more famous, Helen Crawford, another rent striker, trade unionist. She ended up joining the Communist Party. And there's plenty more. So, remember that. We'll tell their stories as well. We'll even get them back in the song. So, that's enough for getting on with. There's plenty more. Watch this space. If you're interested, contact us through Facebook, but just get thinking, just have the patience of a couple of days. To be fair, we don't want the vulgarity of mixing this up with the Armistice Day celebrations. There is a link, but they're separate, and we're not saying anything negative about Armistice Day. But MacLean was the biggest revolutionary, the most high-profile peace campaign, anti-war, anti-conscription campaign, not just in Scotland, frankly not just in Britain, all over the world. I mean, remember, Britain was Britain was the biggest country in the world, the most advanced industrial country in the world, by Marxist theory, and frankly by the capitalist analysis. You know, if it was all going to kick off, it was going to kick off in the most advanced industrial country, in its most industrialised part, and in the most radicalised part, and that was the city of Glasgow, which was incidentally the most multi-ethnic, one of the most multi-ethnic cities in the whole of the UK, I think the whole of the Western world at the time, because you had Irish immigration, you had a Jewish population in the Gorbals, you had the Highland population were kind of treated like immigrants even though they were Scots born, and that was what made Glasgow a dangerous city in a way that frankly Edinburgh, Dundee or Aberdeen weren't. So I mean, there's huge issues here, and we want to get them out. We want to retell the story, we want to retell it in a modern day way. We want to involve young people, we want to use culture, we want to use our best weapon, political songwriting, and we want to look forward. And the whole initiative is not called, initially we're going to call it MacLean 100, and we're still using that as a web address, but it's going to be called, and this is Gavin's inspiration, MacLean Marches On. So we're not dwelling in the past, we're commemorating it, but we're looking at MacLean's ideas in that whole era, because we think they have a lot to tell us in the here and now. Lines like the red and the green unite, and Scotland will rise again. And go and listen to that song by Henderson. It's genius in every level, but it's almost prophetic. And here it is. I hope I don't forget the words. Hey Mac, did you see him as he came down the gorgie? Oh, the Lamb of Allah, and off through the Tay. Oh, yon man is coming, and the hail tune it's turning out, we're all sure hill and back to Glasgow the day. Oh, the joiners and the holders on, they're marching for Clydebang. Come out and see him, he'll be here, tang to bide. Oh, come on, Jock and Jimmy, Leah Crans and your muckle gantries. Great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Oh, great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Argyle Street, then London Road, the route that we'll be marching. Come on down the Brunello, they're here to hear a man. Come on, kneel your pig. Oh, where are your hoodlums? Get your pipes, man, and march to the heat of the clan. Oh, hello, Pat Malone, no, I knew you'd be here, son. The red and the green, my lad, oh, we're side by side. Oh, look there, that's Tartan Johnny. Oh, here, that Tartan's Bonnie. Great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Oh, great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Yeah, I messed up a word or two. I'll get it right for the day. Forward to Glasgow Green, we'll march in good order, or we'll hold the banner high, that boy isn't great. Oh, look there, that's Johnny Ho, that great Hoyt's found oh, Lennon says here now, and leap next is me. Tack 10 now he's speaking, 'cause they'll mind what he says here, in Glasgow City and the whole world divide. Oh, look there, that's Cheeling Johnny, oh my, that Tartan's Bonnie. Great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Oh, great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. A wee instrumental bit, and we hear some fiddles. The meeting is there now, he's away home to Springburn. Come in, John, we'll see you, we'll soon hear you fed. It's hard work, the speaking now, I'm sure you'll be tired tonight. We'll sleep on the flare, man, and gie John the bed. Oh, the hill, Tiffy's quiet now, they ken that he's resting. And hame with his friends now, their fame and the pride. Oh, the red, blue, the green unite, then Scotland will rise again, then great John MacLean will come home to the Clyde. Oh, Scotland will rise again, oh, Scotland will rise again, then great John MacLean's coming home to the Clyde. Oh, when great John MacLean he comes home to the Clyde. And another point, there's 17 versions in that song you can listen to in Spotify at the moment, and not a single one of them is sang by a female vocalist. Is that no long overdue? 70 years, so let's nail that one. Let's change the words, let's make it even better. Let's look forward. Thank you, and good night.